Thank you very much. Hi.
Yeah, it's working. Thank you. Minister, thank you for joining us. No ORF event is complete without having a most fabulous conversation with you. And this particular one is something that you in a way are stewarding India as directions in the days ahead. And we are really grateful that despite having commitments this evening, you were able to find time and join us. So thank you very much, Minister, for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here to be with you.
Minister, I thought the first question I should ask you should be a big question. In a country that is perhaps the most dynamic of all economies in the last few years, the fastest growing large economy, energy plays a crucial role, very crucial role. As the minister in charge of a large portfolio of that energy, how is India sitting today? How well do you sleep at night?
Let me start by saying that this is not an India-specific comment I'm making, but if you want to look at or assess the economic performance of any country, just look at its energy situation and you'll get a reasonably good idea, not just because energy is the lifeline of any economy, but for other reasons also. So insofar as India is concerned, there are 2 or 3 self-evident points which I would like to submit in order to provoke a discussion. One is that our energy consumption, and I'm talking here about crude oil to start with, is growing 3 times faster than the global average. That's the starting point. We consume, and since we are largely dependent on imports, most of it is imported, at least 80 to 85%. We consume 5 million barrels of crude oil in a day. That is the state of play today. No matter which way you look at the energy matrix, if you look at consumption, you look at growth in demand, you look at production, you look at the next, let's say, 2 decades. And this is not my figure, this is something that think tanks like yourselves, like yours, working in the energy sector in the Western world will tell you that between now and say 2045, 25% of that global demand, or the increase in global demand, 25% will come from India. Which in effect means that if you have a very high demand and consumption now, and you look at the entire ecosystem, whether you're looking at E&P, you are looking at energy transition, the whole lot, India is in many respects very central to the global energy scenario. How do I feel now? I can tell you with a sense of relief that we've been able to navigate the difficult times that we found ourselves placed in. I look at difficulty and challenge in 2 ways. One is the 3 points or the trilemma that we had to address. 1, ensuring availability. 2, ensuring affordability. And 3 is making the transition. Insofar as availability is concerned, some figures stand out. Over the last many years, we've diversified the sources of supply from the hitherto 27 to about 39 now. And we are on the lookout for any place where energy availability is, and we have a very quick response time. We can tap that as well. Insofar as affordability is concerned, I think 2 points stand out. In the last 530 days or so, petrol prices here have not gone up. In fact, India is the only country in the world where petrol prices since, I think, April 2021 have come down 5%. The rate of increase in countries of in India's neighborhood, I'm talking about South Asia, the increase was between 50 and 110% or something. If you look at the rest of the world, particularly the United States, etc., increase has been between 30 and 40%. And in India, it came down 5% in petrol, and it came down 0.2% on diesel. Now you can say, what is the magic wand that you guys have, which ensured that you were able to bring prices down? Very simple. On 2 occasions, the Honorable Prime Minister reduced the cess, the central government charges, if I remember correctly, November 2021 and May 2022, and cumulatively the prices of petrol and diesel came down by 13 rupees and 16 rupees. The BJP ruled states, fortunately, also reduced their VAT, whereas the non-BJP states, from where the maximum decibel level of halla comes from, did not reduce their VAT. So we have this peculiar situation that in West Bengal, petrol retails 11 rupees 80 paisa more expensive than in a corresponding BJP ruled state. I've dealt with availability. I should have added that even when there were very severe floods in the northeast, our OMCs ensured that their people carried cylinders on their shoulders and made sure there was no shortage of anything. These days, I mean, I wake up in the morning, one of the things I'm looking out, shortage. But if there is a shortage somewhere, it's due to a local, some problem arose in some place, etc. It's not a national problem. Now I come to transition. And here the story gets better. Because let's start with biofuels. The previous government, which was in office between 2004 and 14, tried their level best. And as part of that, so I can tell you with confidence, they wanted 5% biofuel blending in 10 of our states and union territories, not even the whole country. Small number. And with the best effort in the world, all that we could get by the end of May 2014, when the Modi government came in, was 1.4% biofuel blending. The Prime Minister set a target of 10% blending by November 2022, and the story in the public domain, everybody knows we were able to do it 5 months in advance. That encouraged us to bring forward our target for 20% blending from 2030 to 2025, 5 years in advance. I'm very happy to tell you, we are today at 12% blending. Before I came here, I met one of our industry leaders, and I'm not going to take names, but everybody knows whom I'm speaking to. And I told him at that stage, I said, what really encourages me is that when I meet people, you are already looking at the 3 steps ahead. This is the private sector. He was asking me, may I share this with him? He said, we've got off to a very good beginning. What about feedstock going ahead? And I gave him an idea, and I think he agreed with me on that. Look, where there is sound planning, where there is goodwill, and where people are willing to address, now that you have a global biofuels alliance, wasn't easy, by the way. Huh?
Yeah, I'm going to come to that.
No, let me complete this. The transition today, no one who's in anyone amongst your industry specialists sitting here actually is going to doubt whether we can do 20% blending by 25 or not. I don't think anybody's doubting that. Today the question is, and people are putting their money into it, 20% se aage kitna jayenge aur kab tak jayenge? So one. So transition here, compressed biogas, same thing. Green hydrogen, and I stress that it's a story which is still just waiting to hit the public domain. Again, another company, I'm not going to name them, came to me with their collaboration partners a couple of months ago. And they said, we are on the verge of signing a major MOU or agreement with them. I said, kitna? When he told me, I also nearly fell off my chair. He said, sir, we will be producing 5 million metric tons per annum. So I said, wait a minute. It can't be all green hydrogen. He said, no, 4 is green ammonia, the rest is hydrogen. But listen, this thing. I'm not getting into what the others are doing. Look, green hydrogen lends itself for success only in countries where in one place you have massive demand, where you have the capacity to produce, and where the proximity of the production center and the consumption center are in close this thing. And I think the green hydrogen is the wave, is the fuel of the future. It will succeed in the United States. It will succeed in India. It will succeed in some other large consumption countries. The gas does not lend itself for transportation. Therefore, there's already green ammonia being exported by an Indian company to Unipar in Germany, to Singapore for the new GE electricity plant. So I've very quickly covered all three: availability, affordability,
And transition. No, but I want to look at the transition, then two questions therefore. Let me ask you the first one. You said very cryptically it wasn't easy on the biofuel alliance.
What did I say?
That it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't easy.
Alliance together.
No, it wasn't easy. And I'm not going to go into
The negotiation.
No, let me give you two or three things. When I started talking about 20%, I had opposition from, no, 20% target we had set, but the 20% target was set for 2030, not for 2025. My friend here will tell you where was the opposition coming from. A lot of people had got used to the idea of 20% being a futuristic thing. They were doing quite well now. Even the Automobile Manufacturers Association said, no, this is very unrealistic. So I said, wait a minute. No, the engines will not be able to take the, first there was a gripe at 20%, then people produced studies to show that up to 20% blending does not require any major alteration in the engine. But I asked a simple question. I used to be ambassador to Brazil. All the guys who are manufacturing cars and selling them in India, they also sell there. How is it that you can go to a bunk in Brazil and depending on the price of petrol and ethanol on that day, you can adjust your engine to buy whether you want to buy 45% ethanol and 55% petrol or the other way around. Now, if that can be done there, the same. So, opposition slowly started going away. But look, I'm not holding, maybe it's a mindset issue. But today when I was talking with one of your industry captains, they're saying कि उन्होंने ये कहा, उसने ये कहा. मैंने कहा, press reports को छोड़ दो. Once you are embarking on a journey saying we are serious about biofuels, then I'll tell you why we are serious about biofuels. I just discovered that baloney that I used to be taught earlier when I was a young diplomat, कि अगर आप biofuels में जाएंगे तो आप food security जो है ना वो खत्म हो जाएगी. अरे भाई, food security किसने बोला तुम अपना बासमती राइस लगाओ उसमें? किसने बोला कि अपना वो लगाओ? You can make ethanol from a variety of feedstocks. When we had some problem recently, we moved to maize. And our maize, ethanol made from maize went up, how many times? 15 times. Suddenly in a short period of time. And a lot of states which produce, look, today when we did 10% blending of ethanol, on that particular time, given the price of petrol in the market, we saved 41,000 crores. And that 41,000 crores we were able to utilize to pay our farmers 42,400 crores. Now, if you are taking this now from 10%, we're going to 12%, 12% will go to 20%, and your consumption is going up. The total amount of petrol that you are consuming is going up. We need 1,000 crore liters of ethanol for 20% blending. We're going to get it. We're already at 600 crore liters. But I'm saying something else. I am convinced that ethanol actually is a very good support system to your agricultural economy also. In Panipat, you're making ethanol from parali, from agricultural waste. You've got plants coming up on bamboo. So you must have the confidence that you will have judicious decision making, and you have that in evidence now with the kind of government the Honorable Prime Minister is leading. You take rational choices. Now if, for instance, some commodity suddenly because of global shortages, something happens and, exports start, you have that flexibility of adjusting it. But if you have multiple feeds, it's only a question of discovering some of them. And we were able to do it without any effort. When this problem came up in the case of, what was it, rice, I think. I mean, I must say my colleagues, the civil servants were a little worked up. कि ये क्या होगा, holy meter time है, कुछ भी नहीं होगा. एक में नहीं होता, दूसरा दरवाजा खुल गया. We just, I think we raised the price of maize marginally, etc. And now 15 times it's gone up. No, nobody's even looking at it. I was talking to some very enlightened people in the government, and they were telling me, he said, you know, you are now produced an ecosystem where earlier said, no, I will not set up an ethanol plant unless I have a buyback guarantee. Today, nobody's asking that question. Today, they know that ethanol and biofuels are going to be encouraged. You produce it, you have a global biofuels alliance. You are now also entering another dimension where both the domestic market and the international market can in ways fuse. And the biofuels alliance, by the way, I am not going to answer a question before it's asked. It's not just an intergovernmental agreement. It is a multi-stakeholder. Industry will be a stakeholder, and I'm saying it in public. And we will encourage, like Unica in Brazil, major cooperative on ethanol production, our industry people to be stakeholders in that. And there's nothing like that sharing of experience which will produce the desired approach and success.
No, but what is truly the purpose of this alliance when you are largely looking at using your own produce to make your own ethanol? Why do you need a global alliance? Is it just for sharing best practices, know-how, technical standards?
You come from a think tank which thinks big. We are only 3% of the global market. Abhi the market in ethanol is only about $92 billion. It's going to go up to $162 billion in 2 years. But you're potentially looking at a $500 billion. Why shouldn't I expect people who've already become billionaires to become even bigger?
On the second transition issue that you had raised, green hydrogen, again, huge potential. And you mentioned proximity of production and consumption as being one of the drivers and definers of hydrogen. How do you look at what's happening around the world, especially, let me ask you, and let me be a little provocative. This Make America Great Again, now it is called Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act and its distortionary potential in terms of hydrogen pricing and subsidies and incentives, how do you view that as an energy minister who's trying to catalyze your own ecosystem?
In the interest of full disclosure, I look around this room, many eminent people, but I've probably known Samir longer than most people here. I was Secretary Economic Relations. He walked into my room one day and he said कि मुझे चाहिए, मैं कुछ करने वाला हूँ बहुत बड़ा. So I didn't tell him what is. So मैंने उससे हाथ से कागज ले लिया. Now this is a true story. I've never shared it even with my staff officer. So it's a better यहाँ पे. So I took that thing. So I walked across. My room was on the first floor of the MEA. I walked across to the corner room, which was Mr. Pranab Mukherjee's room. He was then the External Affairs Minister, and I think he was doubling up as Finance Minister also, but I don't remember. Yes. So I walked into his room, and very naturally he said, yes. I said, I've got this character in my room. I've known him for many years. I said, Samir Saran, so-and-so. He wants to do this. So he looked at me. I said, why I was going to him? I said, no, I just thought I would tell you that we are going to do this big event and so on. So he's asking for very little. I'm going to double it. But I just wanted to run it past you.
Correct.
So he looked at me, he smiled. He also would have thought, hey, who's this new kind of secretary we've got who wants to give rather than restrict? Normally civil servants are like that. I was sorry. We had a former cabinet secretary sitting here. I've got another colleague of mine sitting here. No, but it's a approach issue. So I didn't tell him anything. And then I walked out, and I used to do that very often. He was a member. He had many GOMs. But I used to specialize. I don't know, for some reason, I was the youngest secretary of the lot. The others were senior to me. I used to service each GOM. For some reason, I don't know, Secretary Economic Relations. I came back and I told him, theek hai, ho gaya. But you would ask for what? Some small figure, 23 lakhs or something like that.
You doubled it.
I just doubled it. I said, karo, achhi tarah se karna. So I've known him. Now, what is it that we are looking at here, yaar? You want to provoke me to say that the Americans have a play with words, that when they put in $500-600 billion, they are calling it an Inflation Reduction Act. I'm not going to respond to that. All I'm saying is, you are spending $600 billion or whatever the amount is to produce more green hydrogen. More strength to your elbow. I hope my companies in India will take advantage of that inflation reduction. I have a very different approach in all that. And I'm telling you they will. I mean, my first exposure to green hydrogen came when? I was a few days old as Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas. And I had a, what is called, virtual meeting with the American Secretary, US Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Greenhalgh. And she said, you know, Minister, I'm very happy we are meeting. I have an objective which is what? 1 for 1 for 1. मैंने कहा ये क्या हो गया? 1 kilo of green hydrogen for $1 for 10 years. Next day I heard one of our industry giants make the same thing. Suddenly my mind went on to, I became Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister, I think in July of 2021. Then comes August 15, 2021, and lo and behold, our Honorable Prime Minister says from the ramparts of the Red Fort, addressing the nation, that we are going to take up green hydrogen in mission mode. He said that. After that, for a few months, everybody would come to me, अरे यार green hydrogen, PM ने बोला कुछ हो नहीं रहा. मैंने कहा यार, ये जो कह रहे हैं कुछ हो नहीं रहा, is a load of, just give it time. What did we do? We did two things. You had a decision in which, a cabinet decision, in which the responsibility for green, because green hydrogen is something which is not one ministry is going to deal with. My ministry, I keep telling R.K. Singh, I don't know whether he likes it or not, I said green hydrogen will succeed because my refiners will make it in their refineries. But there are other people in the steel industry, so we had 6 centers in the government or ministries which were going to deal with it. But we did one thing more. We announced an amount of 19,700 crores for the PLI scheme to cover the manufacture of electrolyzers. Now, I think it's a very big thing. Today, what do you need to make green hydrogen? I'm very clear. Correct me. You need to bring down the cost of green energy or solar energy. We've already demonstrated that we can bring it down from 25 cents a unit to 3 cents. And you need electrolyzers. Some as far as I know, every known electrolyzer manufacturer in the world is either here or is in collaboration with companies. And if some are left, I'm going to Germany in a couple of days' time.
You'll get some more.
Well, I'll certainly talk to them. But I think they want to come here, not because you have a German connection, it's not because of that. They will come here because there's an economic opportunity here. And this is the way I have always said, good projects don't get held back because of lot of resources, lack of resources. I have said this now for 30 years. You give me a good project which is bankable, money will find its way because money is also looking for resources, are also looking for good projects. And green hydrogen is just one of those projects. If you look at what is happening in the private sector, government has done the ecosystem. That PLI scheme for...
No, in fact, on the private sector, let me just ask you, sir. In fact, private and public, I'm going to take both of them together. Now, you are a ministry that has fostered some of the most efficient public sector undertakings as well in the past. I know, I can see the smile on your face. I'm being polite, sir. Some of them are...
I don't want to interrupt you. One of those guys, I got off the plane yesterday, I saw the results of one of the companies. And I couldn't resist myself. I called the CMD of that company. I won't name it because पता लग जाएगा आपको कौन है. मैंने कहा ये हमें बहुत दुख हुआ कि आपके इस क्वार्टर का profit is how much? Only 12,000 crores, 14,000 crores. I said, which means your half-yearly return is about 26, 27,000 crores profits, which means you will be ending the year with what? 53, 54,000 crores. I said, you know, we are a 7,000-year-old civilization. Promise me, with these returns for 1 year, you will not whine. No, but this is real. I mean, I'm telling you, and this is one. Another one is coming out. Another one is coming out. When I became minister, there was talk, BPCL ko disinvest kar do, ye kar do, wo kar do. I just saw the BPCL result. Last quarter was 8,000 crores.
No, so the
these
question...
are all OMCs and your private sector, by the way. I don't want to say anything. Everybody is enjoying themselves. But the country benefits from that. If the private sector grows and the public sector grows, it means the country is growing now.
No, but sir, more specific question. Everyone is making money because of the opportunities of the economic growth that India is offering everyone. But are they nimble enough to seize these opportunities such as green hydrogen? Are you seeing the responsiveness in the market players?
They're not just seeing the opportunities, they're acting on the opportunity. I mean, I would be worried if, say, government announces a 19,700 crore PLI scheme, and I would be very worried if there are no people coming and applying for it. I don't ever hear that. Today, when I was talking to one of your friends here, another MP came in, and he told me something he's doing. I was shocked. I mean, he's an MP and this thing. वो क्या कर रहे थे? Biodiesel का. हाँ? I wasn't aware of it. You see, the thing is, you are as a government required to set up an ecosystem. Once you set up the right ecosystem and the right messaging goes down, you don't have to do hand-holding, they'll do it themselves. And today, the fact of the matter is, there are very few countries like India where the potential for growth, forget about the growth just now, that is a given. But the potential for growth, no matter which way you're looking at it, is looking good. When I started talking about a $5 trillion economy in 2025 and a $10 trillion economy, some of the पढ़े लिखे विद्वान होते हैं ना, वो चक्रवर्ती क्लास के, they started saying, क्या बोल रहा है, इसको पता ही नहीं है क्या है. वो आया था पढ़ा लिखा आदमी, वहां became an economic advisor for everything. एक ने किताब में भी लिखा है. You know, have these guys got blinkers on? I said, what they're writing? Today you are a $4 trillion economy by December, but that's not the important story. The important story is one quarter growth was 7.8%. And who are the next two economies? I'm not talking about countries. I'm not going to take names. One is 4.1%, the other is 4.3%. Both of them have either flat growth or major quarter-on-quarter growth is just 0.8% or something like that. And of course you will become among the three large economies. But that's not it. Does it really matter? So $5 trillion you will come. You and I will agree. But from 5 to 10, does it matter whether you're a $7.8 trillion economy by, 2030 or you are a $9 trillion economy? The trajectory has to be there. And it's not that this will happen inevitably. You need sound, bold decision making. You need to make sure that you are unleashing the productive forces. Unfortunately, our opposition parties are not seeing that. They're getting caught in, किसी ने alert भेजा, किसी ने कहा तो 150 countries में गया. So I had this MP sitting with me, he's one of our MPs, very vocal one. कहते यार मेरे को भी आया. मैंने कहा, why don't you go on TV and say that this is not targeted at Auntie X or Uncle Y. This is coming, it's some general alert. So I am basically saying that today, and I say this with confidence, with this kind of leadership, with the kind of decisions they're taking, with the kind of, look at civil aviation. I was civil aviation minister. Today you are crossing 5 lakh passengers in a day in civil aviation. And everybody's civil aviation is collapsing. Your airlines are ordering 1,000 planes plus. Why? Because you were able to privatize Air India in time.
And what about so by the way, that alert even I got, but I thought it has gone to everyone. So, and that alert.
You also got it now?
But I thought it's gone to
But you are one of our friends. Why would we as a government want to target you? Yeah?
You tell me, sir.
Ramesh, मेरे MP को कर रहे हैं. Now I don't look at the phone. I may have got a signal like that, यार. I don't know. These guys are nuts, pure nuts. कोई मौका मिलता है, तो फिर किसी ने बोले सोरोस का क्या? अरे यार सोरोस ने किया, जिसने भी किया है. Why do you have this feeling of victim?
वो छोड़ो सर, उसको तो आते रहेंगे alerts वगैरह. Let's come back to green transitions. On this issue,
I couldn't resist getting that one in.
Okay. So on the issue of transitions itself, so the public sector, private sector, government ecosystem are all aligned for the objectives that we have set ourselves. Now let's look at the broader energy transitions, the 2070 net zero, the 2047 developed country status. When we move to that framework, how do you see India progressing? How do you assess our performance over the last 5 to 7 years, since the Paris Agreement, let's say in 2015? How are we doing on that front, on the larger net zero objective?
First of all, I had the privilege of spending 39 years in the Foreign Service and I had 39 years in the Foreign Service, 6 years doing what you do, think tanking at the international level. And now I've been a minister for 6 years and 3 months, okay? You know, we have to be very careful about definitions. The Prime Minister, in all his assessments, is a very cautious person. When he says that India will be net zero by 2070, he set a target which is both a target towards you which we work, and there's no question of our being short. When he says 2047 ko Viksit Desh banna hai, I am going to make two submissions to you on the 2070 net zero target and this 2047. Let me start with 2047. I know from the time I was in the UN, and I know now, that the only agreed definition of what is a...
To those who did not get the Hindi part of it, the Prime Minister has laid a challenge for India to be a developed nation by 2047. Yeah. That's the target he's
That's the target. Now, is there a definition of what is a developed country? I'm not aware of it, but you go by broad indices that your this sector, that sector, etc. will be, like that. But there is a definition for what is called the least developed countries. And we looked it up, there are 46 out of them, out of 193 member states of the UN. What will be our economy by 2040, according to the Singh? According to Ernst & Young, by 2040 you should be a $26 trillion economy. Now tell me, with a $5 trillion economy by 2025, you're already feeling good. If that $5 trillion economy gets multiplied 5 times, your per capita income also goes up. I don't know what the definition is, but my submission to you, sir, is that we are going to be a developed country by current levels of, what is a developed country much before that. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you've got countries with a GDP of 2.7%, 2.7 trillion, calling themselves very good restaurants and all that. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at the GDP and the heft, you will be way ahead of that. Now let me come to that 2070 net zero. Since we are talking about the OMCs and the oil sector, I'll give you some statistics. What are the targets for our OMCs to become net zero? Engineers India Limited, 2035. 35 years before 2070. ONGC, 2038. They're one of the largest companies in the world. 2038. GAIL, 2040. BPCL, 2040. HPCL, 2040. Oil India Limited, 2040. IOCL, 7th largest company in its segment, 2046. 2070, say much before that, the ones which are dealing with fossil fuels and all the other toxicity that goes into it, they'll be net zero. This is my current information. I also throw, just to provoke you, as you grow, as your GDP grows,
you'll become more sophisticated.
Absolutely. You see, because then you are able to do things in a more sustainable manner. The problem comes at the bottom of the growth, because then your devastation is more. You're using kerosene, you're using wet wood, coal, etc.
So you become a more efficient user of resources.
Absolutely.
Sir, we have only a couple of minutes left, but I thought I will again take you to your own field in a new avatar. Energy politics. We have Europe, which has a conflict. We have Middle East, which is looking precarious. We have a Chinese demand that is not rising. We have OPEC and OPEC plus politics underway. How do you see this chessboard, and how is it likely for us to come out of it in a way that sustains our economic growth into the future?
It's very difficult to separate your self, I'm talking about myself, from the current assignment that you've been given. It's very difficult. If I were a free person and not having to deal with the current
responsibility, the
energy and the petroleum and natural gas and the housing and urban affairs challenge, I would be more worried. But now that I deal with it for petroleum and natural gas, I'll tell you, you have just now 2 or 3 things staring you in the face. You have a supply management problem. Why? Because the current global consumption prior to the fragility which came in on account of the excess liquidity, inflation and the interest rates going up, it was about 102 million barrels a day. 2 members of OPEC or OPEC Plus took 5 million barrels off the market, which is two major members. So today,
So Saudi Arabia and Russia removed.
yeah, you named them. I didn't because I have, okay, fine. 97 million barrels a day is what is being produced and what is being refined and consumed. Samir, my view is there's no shortage of energy in the world, no shortage of oil. Take with that the realization that tomorrow being defined not in terms of specific timelines, fossil fuels have to go out of the market. So I would have thought that these countries should be in a mood to keep the prices in such a way that if you take the price too high, you will have a repeat of what happened in 2006. Okay? I even quoted Karl Marx on that. I come to that. You don't want to take it so high that the demand collapses because it goes into recession. And you also don't want to keep the prices so low that you don't get a return on the oil to underwrite or to meet your whatever your planned expenditures are. So I would have thought it's pretty easy that you can sit down with the consumers, have a reasonable dialogue saying, I need so much price, I know you can't go beyond it, and the price should hover around a particular. Now what happened is two things. One is the reduction in 5 million barrels, maybe they thought price would go up. But there are other problems in the global economies. As I said, half the world is in recession, the other half is flirting with recession. If you continue to have geopolitical uncertainty, which is what you have now, for a variety of reasons, there are conflicts in certain parts of the world which are very directly and intimately related to the energy supply routes. So you have to be very cautious. My own view is that it is in everyone's interest, and that's my message, that you allow healthy recovery of the global economy to take place. Because of the excess liquidity which came into the market on account of the stimulus packages which were introduced, and the fact that they've been constantly raising their rates, which is resulting in other problems in those parts of the world. I mean, mortgages are becoming almost impossible at that. So what do? It should be in everyone's interest. Today prices, in spite of the turbulence, they're about, I think, 86 or something like that. I personally think it's too high. But somebody asks me a question, kitni honi chahiye? And I turn around and say, that's not my job. I have never been to an oil producer and say, listen, please reduce the price. No, we are not made like that. You have oil, that's your sovereign right to decide how much you want to make available. But then they say, we don't deal with price. Of course you deal with price. If you limit the amount of oil that is available, the price will go up. But now there's another catch. If you take decisions which are not thought through, then you are facing what is called the law of unintended consequences. You set out to do something and you ended up doing something else. Insofar as, and I'm going to make this provocative statement, when military conflict took place in February 2022, some countries decided to weaponize their ideological thing. I don't think they thought it through. Because what is the idea? Idea is today that you need to be able to restore stability, bring stability around. And you need to be able to do it in a manner which leaves it open for global economic recovery. Today what I'm worried about is, and if some Venezuelan oil comes into the market, already the press is saying, oh, now we're going to import cheap Venezuelan oil. Listen, bottom line, we will buy from wherever we can get cheapest. And Venezuelan oil, by the way, can be used in our refineries now. Overall, I think the world hopefully has enough sensible people in leadership positions who will heed our Prime Minister's advice.
Not a time for war.
Absolutely. But again, if you have a terror attack like that, and I'm not going to say it, because a terrorist takes away the most fundamental right of all, the right to life. So if you go and do that, obviously there's going to be a reaction. So then you can't get into political theory where kisi ka hai, wo kisi ka hai. Nahin. So today we are facing many difficulties, but I'm confident that You were able to play unifier in a deeply divided world through the G20, and I hope that spirit prevails. But you have to be cautious in the coming months.
Times of geopolitical uncertainty, how are they for energy transitions?
Energy transition will go ahead. The more uncertainty, the faster the transition. Because people are not going to take any risks just now. I was...
Were you surprised by how quickly, when the fossil fuels sources were challenged, how quickly countries...
No, it's a very simple thing. Let's say tomorrow, let's say uncertainty ensures that there is complete, let's say, breakdown in the supply lines and oil hits, say, 120, 150. Do you think people are going to pay for that? They would much rather utilize that money in supporting the transition.
So I want to finally ask you, sir, and I'm not being provocative here. Is there, we spoke at the beginning that we require a new trade and financial architecture. The Sherpa was here, Mr. Amitabh Kant was here. We require a new financial architecture. How are we going to bring the South countries, who may not have the same resources of a country such as ours, which is $5 trillion or $4.5 trillion growing at a certain pace, how do we bring them together? How do we bring them on this ride of transitions, of new fuels, of cleaner living?
What I like about Samir, he asks his own question and then he answers it himself and then he wants me to comment. There are two things. Let's be very clear. Global architecture, I mean you mean the multilateral system.
Correct.
Mr. Saran, that was devised in 1945 when the Second World War was still going on. And again, I don't want to say anything because I served that system for 39 years. No one, as I mean no one in the world today is going to tell you that the multilateral system is in good shape. And I'll give you two examples. The one designated agency which has the authority to determine whether there is a threat to international peace and security is the UN Security Council. You ask yourself a simple question, where all in the world are wars taking place? And you'll find many such places. Did any of them before declaring war go to the UN Security Council? They didn't even make a reference to it, number one. Number two, the Security Council has been paralyzed since the permanent members found themselves on opposite sides of the fence in the Libya and Syria. I was presiding over the Security Council. It has continued to remain paralyzed. I'm making a very broad statement. So if the one agency which is responsible for making a determination, because once it makes a determination there is a threat to peace and security, it alone has the authority to authorize all means necessary within quotes, which means military force. Security Council is out of this thing. Now I come to the other part. What are the pillars of the multilateral system? Peace and security, development, all that. When the world financial and economic crisis took place, and you and I are part of that story, there was a meeting of finance ministers, I think in Sao Paulo in Brazil. Those are 6, 7. Something like that, 7, 8, whatever. And everybody said, and what was the world financial and economic crisis? It arose out of the subprime lending sector in the US
2008, that's right.
Real estate market, 2008, exactly. Because after that I came to Delhi.
Correct.
Now, they didn't know what to do. Why? Why didn't they know? They didn't think the UN could deal with it. ECOSOC was a talk shop, they couldn't deal with it. Then what else could they do? IMF, World Bank, those were the other two parts of the multilateral system set up in the Bretton Woods, that beautiful place in Hampshire, Bretton Woods. And then you had the Havana conference. They were non-functional. WTO was not something. So what did they do? Knee-jerk response, which in retrospect was a good one. They decided to elevate the G20, which was meeting at finance minister level, and decided to make it a summit-level group of heads of state and government. Hence was born the G20. Now, if anyone who knows these two facts, the G20's genesis and the, what's it called, the Security Council paralysis, is not going to say that the multilateral system is healthy. It isn't. So you need to develop something more. That's why you need bright guys like Amitabh and others with you. Sit down one evening, have a spiritual discussion, and find out what is it that you can do to architecturalize. I'm using a word I just made up.
Okay.
The concept of how the new world should look. There are provisions. If the UN is not working, you know, if there are provisions in the charter to increase the membership. No, but the guys who are sitting on the high table
don't want to give space now.
No, they don't want to go, but, you know, point is nobody takes them seriously. I'm also now. Now it doesn't matter. Because when it comes to heavy lifting, you come to countries like India, whether it's a cyclone or an earthquake in Tokyo or a tsunami, they come to India. So somebody asked me, but you know, India Security. I said, listen, India doesn't need the Security Council. Today the Security Council needs India.
Great. I think, Mr. Minister, thank you so much for your time, for joining us, and for clearly outlining what I think Ravi and Sanjay also pointed at the very beginning of this evening. We need new alliances, we need new forms of institutional arrangements, and we need mobilizations that can actually help all for a cleaner and prosperous future. Please join me in applauding the Minister for his interventions this evening. As we leave, as I escort the Minister down, we have a short message from Raj Shah, President of Rockefeller Foundation, on energy transition. So please remain seated as we lead the Minister out. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, Namaste. I'm sorry not to be able to be with you in person this week. But as you know, you're in great hands with Ravi, Sora,